Welcome to the Ask Phil Skinny podcast with a guest. I'm proud to present Heike Yates. Is that good pronunciation?
Heike Yates.
Okay, thank you very much for being my guest. And I would like to start off with asking you a bit more about yourself and how did you start what you're doing now? How did that happen? How did life brought you to where you are now?
Yeah, I'm currently helping midlife women gain momentum with their health and their strength and their life. And that's what I've really focused on because I feel that a lot of women and men that get older are somewhat at some point stuck and they feel like they don't know where to go and they don't know where to look for help. And the internet is inundated with so much information that adds to the confusion. And even for somebody who's tried everything, has gone through all the diets and the exercise programs and the quick starts and God knows what is out there, and still didn't get to where they're going, they feel that they lost momentum, that they don't know how to move forward. And when you look back over 40 years when I started my air quotes, my fitness career, I had no idea what I was getting myself into. Back then, I originally grew up in Germany, and exercise is just built into your everyday life. You bike to the bread store, you walk to the beer garden, since I'm from Munich area, and you hike just because it's just what you do. It's not to go to the gym, lift weights, do this. At least back when I grew up, it was just part of what we did. And then I moved to the States when I was 23 and or had a job as at the Foreign Service. And it was completely sedentary. It was probably the worst time of my life because I cannot sit still. And I was sitting there and I was getting just flabbier and less active, on and on. And then I met my first husband there. And then I became miraculously pregnant. And we had not planned on having children, but there we are. We were in love. I got pregnant and I gained 50 pounds during my first pregnancy. And it was great because my then gynecologist said, "You must rest, eat bonbons, let your husband massage your feet, don't do anything, and no exercise," which is so different from what we're telling women now. "And just take care of yourself. And then after the baby, you can do whatever you want." But after that baby, I had gained 50 pounds. And once the baby was delivered, there were still 30 more pounds to go. And I had no idea how to get that weight off or where do we even start? And I thought about all these diets. The cabbage soup diet was a big favorite back then, and a Scarsdale diet. So I tried these diets. I got those books, and only to learn that this is nonsense. You can't diet yourself to health and strength. And back then, I had a friend who was also a young mom, and she says, "I'm going to the class at the local YMCA, which is a fitness group that is pretty much everywhere around the world." And she says, "They're teaching dancercise classes." And I was like, I could dance. I love dancing, and I could bring my son with me because they had childcare. So during the hour of exercise, I didn't have to worry about him. I mean, he always hated going there, it seems, because the whole hour he would just scream his head off no matter what the lady did. And I said, I am not giving up. And I loved the idea of the classes. It was music. You probably now you would say it's more like jazzercise or like, oh no, like Zumba. And there was some light weightlifting, there were some ab exercises, and you did it in the community of like minded, friendly other women. And this is how my journey got started with exercise.
Amazing. And I would like to discuss so many topics with you regarding how to gain strong body. You mentioned group exercises. What's your take on weightlifting for women?
Back in the days, nobody talked about weightlifting for women. So just to be clear, I will be 65 this year. So I've been doing this for a long time, for almost 40 years at this point in the fitness industry and nutrition. And nobody talked about weightlifting back then. We were supposed to lift light weights and lots of it. So it's like, if you're thinking of a bicep curl, we're supposed to do at least 20, 30, the more the better. And nobody was really educating us or showed us women that there's a different way of becoming stronger other than overusing your joint with those silly little weights, which is fine. I always say when I work with my clients that are older in their 80s, 90s, and my oldest client just turned 100 last week, uh, they do lighter weights. It's a whole different body. It's a whole different story with age-related diseases and things that we're dealing with back then. But I feel that now, over the last probably 5 years, more specifically, maybe even a little bit longer, weight training for women has pushed to the forefront and the importance of weight training because we were all told you pick up a weight, you just look at a weight and you be bulky. Of course, most women don't want to be bulky. And Peter, back in the day, in my mid 30s, I became a bodybuilder because I wanted to get as big as humanly possible. And I thought, oh, this is great. Every woman wants to be as muscular as humanly possible, only to find out that this is not the case. Women want to get stronger, more toned, and look better naked or in their clothes, but not get as humanly possible as you do with bodybuilding. But it was a great lesson in what muscles, how to build muscles. And then later on, the importance of muscles became even more important as I started getting older.
Okay. Uh, I want to ask you one thing, and there's a lot of debate going on around internet on weightlifting, and there are so many exercises and so many different exercises. And the popular theory is that with some exercise you activate the muscle, but a lot of let's say classic exercise are not even activating muscles in a way that they would start growing. Is is there a specific exercise or set of or exercises um, that we need to use? And in the olden days, they said that every 90 days we need to change our exercise completely in order to stimulate our muscles. Is that still true today?
Oh my God, that's a big, big, big question. So let's dissect the activation and not activating of muscles. Well, there's different forms of getting your muscles to do something. To keep it really simple, because we can't assume that the listeners know everything about muscles and exactly how it works. And I feel that oftentimes when we use too many technical terms, we lose everybody because they're like, "What? Huh? I don't know what she's talking about." Number one, let's go to why is strength training or building muscle important for women? Number one, it increases your bone density. Number two, it helps you burn more calories at rest. It's not a significant amount, but it is. And number three, you are stronger in the long run for daily activities like going to the bathroom, sitting on the toilet, i.e., I'm doing a squat, or you are walking the stairs up and down, which are almost, you could say these are lunges. So that the activities that we do are part of our everyday life, not like back in the bodybuilding days. I didn't care about daily activity. I cared about getting as big as humanly possible. So that was a different goal. But when you think about, in my mind, I believe that you always activate your muscle. There's different forms of when you do an active bicep curl, like you use your arm, you go up and down with the weight, but you also do isometric or isokinetic strength training where you don't necessarily move, But because of the external resistance, like the weight in your hand, and you're holding still and you have to hold it, or like imagine if you're listening to this, I make a fist in front of me and I put the other hand on top of it. I'm trying to push my arm down. I'm activating my muscles, but in isometric or isokinetic fashion, where I'm not lengthening and shortening the muscle, but I'm simply strengthening the muscle in this isometric fashion, which still produces small growths and also keeps the length of the muscle. So we're not shortening and lengthening the muscle. And so there's different ways of looking at it, but I feel there's never a time, or I know there's never a time when we're not activating, unless you're standing there and you lie down. Probably lying down is the best way because you just lie down. Your body, your skeletal system doesn't have to do anything with the muscles. To the 90-day turnaround, I always say change things up,
Mm-hmm.
but it depends on the goal. If your goal is to continually grow your lean muscle mass, or just call it muscle mass because it is lean, it's not a fatty muscle mass. It's your muscle mass. You have to challenge the muscle progressively. If you do something for, I always say 6 weeks, 90 days, whoever says whatever is the best for the research that's currently out there, change things up because your body will get used to the pattern and the weights that you've been using. Even if you add progressively more load or more weight, you will still get to a point where you're not catching your body off guard, where it's used to after a chest press, I do a bicep curl, I do a shoulder press, I do a whatever. Um, and that's just changing things up will challenge not only your strength, but your balance and coordination throughout those exercises. And that in its whole package will result in more muscle mass. And ladies, you're not getting bulky. There are very few women that are getting bulky. I know a client of mine she looks at weights and her muscles grow, but it's very unusual. But she also has a very ectomorph body type where she quickly gains muscles, which is 99.9% of us don't. And men have the opposite. They usually grow much faster because of the muscle tissue difference between male and female.
Okay, I would like to address a couple more things. Um, Recuperation time. In the olden days, they said that we should train one muscle per week, or we could do abs several times per week. Now the new theories go down to 48 hours per complete recuperation. What is your take on that?
Between 12 to 72 hours is recovery is ideal. And that depends on what you did. If you had a hard HIIT workout, high intensity interval training workout, you must give your body more recovery time for muscle repair and just overall rest of the body to again hit it then with a harder load. If you're somebody who's taking a group exercise class with lighter weights, you probably don't need that much recovery. But in that case, I would always say take a day off, do something else the next day,
Mhm.
and then go back to that. Let your body repair itself. Because when you think about the idea of muscle growth, is where we lift weights. What happens is in our body, our muscles are what's the word I want to use? Are broken down. We damage our muscle in order to grow them in its simplistic form. So you damage your muscle, so it repairs and regrows and builds more of it. So it needs time to recover in order to do that. And I remember when I was a bodybuilder and I hit the weights hard, Peter, every day, upper body, lower body, abs, whatever. I was sore all the time. And sometimes I would walk like a robot because I was so sore. Very different from somebody who's trying to get stronger and overall healthier.
Mhm. Um, what's your take on? We know that all gyms now have everything what you want in it. It was not like that in the older days. What's your take on the free weight versus exercise machines?
Depends on the age and the ability. If you are a beginner, you have no idea what to do with those weights that are sitting around the gym. Start with the machines. The machines will guide you, they will show you form, unless you have enough money to hire a personal trainer who can teach you this. But I always feel like for somebody just starting out, it's easier to sit or stand, depending on the equipment, or lie down and do. And I always say, look at the picture, follow the picture, and set the machine up, or get some help at the gym to do that, to actually learn what you're doing. Because again, going back, I remember one year, one time I was managing a health club, and there was a two-story club, and from the top you could see the people working out in the fitness area. And I was watching this guy and I'm like, what is he doing? And he had this newspaper or this magazine on one of the benches, and he would go and look, and then he would go back and would try to mimic what he saw. And I'm like, huh, this doesn't look like anything I ever seen. So I walked down and just kind of said, oh, what are you doing down there? And he said, oh, I'm doing this new great workout. And I'm like, oh, okay. I said, this is really good. And I said, may I give you some pointers to be more efficient? I didn't want to tell him this was kind of nonsense, what he saw to do. So we perceive things very different when we are not familiar with them. So machines are really good for a beginner or for somebody who is in their 80s or 90s that deals with balance issues.
Okay. Um, for my let's say my best progress was made when I would combine weightlifting with chiropractor. What's your take on that?
On chiropractor,
Yeah, with the regular visits, almost weekly, I had no pains, almost everything went smoothly when I visited a chiropractor.
that's very interesting. I would have never thought that. I would have said a massage therapist because that's what I did. I think chiropractors have their place as they're releasing tension in the muscles, I'm sorry, in the joints.
Mhm.
I would not put them together with weightlifting, to be honest. I
Okay.
would say massage therapy, I would say physiotherapy to help with alignment, which a chiropractor does too, in a sense. But I would say if you do, find somebody that's really reputable, which you seem to have.
Yep. um, and I would also like to get your take on stretching. How important is stretching?
Super, uber, duper, duper important. Do not stretch. Do you think you can get away with stretching? And there's different forms of stretching too to make things or matters even more complicated. So, how long do I stretch? Where do I stretch? How deep do I stretch? There's so many questions. Back when I was still running marathons, I had my running buddies there. So, and I became a running coach as well. So, I had my group that ran a specific pace that was part of who I coached. So they would run with me. We talk about running form. We talk about all these wonderful things. And at the end of each run, especially on the weekends when we did our long, long runs, I said, all right, now let's stretch. And everybody was turning up their noses and saying, stretching is for wussies. We don't need to stretch. And I was like, yeah, you can go home. But more and more people joined me when we were stretching. Number one, it felt good after a long run just to stretch the muscles. Will you get flexibility gains from it? No, but you will offset for many times the soreness. In this case, it was running associated with running, like tight backs, tight knees, calves and hamstrings, quads are really tight. And so stretching is literally just releasing some of the tension that you created throughout. Will you, like I said, will you be more flexible afterwards? No, but recovery may be much bigger or better than before. Now, I have to preface this that there's really no scientific proof of that. It's simply the feeling. And when people tell me, oh, that was, Heike, can we stretch again? This is great. But do it, because I see it with my older clients, how crookedy they are, how the tendons shorten, how the muscles shorten. And it oftentimes just stretching making the arms straight is a challenge, or taking the hands to get them over the head, like I'm showing you here, gets really difficult when you're so tight all throughout the body. And flexibility, and I teach Pilates, is incorporated into the Pilates training. So I teach the people that come to me specifically wanting to do Pilates. I always say you get both. You get strength, but you also get flexibility. But if you purely look into weight training, start incorporating some flexibility into your strength training routine, or do something at the end. Stretching before does really nothing because the body is cold, and it could just feel good because you do it, but it really doesn't help with the goal of strength training more or doing something better because you stretched. So do like just some warm-ups that you normally would do, like leg swings or roll downs or whatever it is your warm-up is on the bikes. Get on the bike for 5 minutes. But in the end, take your time to really stretch those major muscle groups. Your body will love it.
Okay, I like that. I'm also a huge fan of stretching. I was not when I was younger, but now I don't start any training without stretching and finish because the soreness does not become me anymore. I used to be proud that I'm all sore because the more you suffer, the more you really care. But now, when I'm older, I don't want to suffer. I just want to have the health benefit. I would really like to ask you one more thing before I ask you about your book, and that is like all my friends, male friends in US, they're in on testosterone replacement treatment (TRT). They say that that makes them more fit, and what you call natty. I don't want that. If I need more testosterone, I just fast for a couple of days, and my testosterone is just skyrocketing. We go
Mhm.
800, 900. But
Yeah.
what's your take on all these hormonal, and we know that a lot of women are going through perimenopause and menopause. They're taking these hormone replacement treatments, but I do believe with a lot of weightlifting we can balance hormones much better. What's your take on that?
I got to tell you, when I went through perimenopause and menopause, the one thing that really saved me and helped with a lot of those side effects in menopause was exercise, strength training, exercise. I was then already training for triathlon, so it was cardio, which sometimes was difficult when I didn't sleep all night or was fatigued. But strength training has really made a big difference. And the hormone replacement therapies, they help you just sleep better. They help you feel better through the symptoms in and around menopause. With the question about the testosterone replacement, I'm totally against things like that.
Mhm.
It was back then when I was a bodybuilder. People kept pushing stuff on me, like, oh, you should have this and you should have that, and you have more better gains, and you will get bigger, and you will be low. But all these things have side effects. All these things backfire in the end. And after I trained myself for a year by myself with all my books, with Arnold Schwarzenegger's book and all these things, because I didn't know, I was a young trainer. I don't know how to put muscle mass on a body. I hired myself a bodybuilding coach. And he said, We are natural training. We're not adding any of that crap into your body because it will just backfire with your health, your kidneys, your all your internal organs because they have to be somewhere digested. And if somebody wants to do that, it's their jam. I would say stay away from that stuff. Is it really worth it in the end? Because none of us, I mean, I competed locally on local bodybuilding stages, but I never got to Miss Olympia and all of that stuff where this is more prevalent. And I'd say, you know what? Stick to your lane, stick to your health, get stronger the way you can get stronger. And it comes down to really creating the momentum that you will continue what you're doing. Because lifting for 2 weeks or 3 weeks is not going to do it. It's years and years of working on your body and changing things up, as we talked about earlier. But for women, pick up weights. You'll feel so much better and stronger and stay away from the drugs. And for women, if you need HRT, talk to your doctor about it. We're not doctors and specialists in women's health in that direction. So ask for advice.
Before we go to your book, I have to ask you another thing. There was this famous bodybuilder, Dorian Yates, that has the same surname. Are you somehow related to him, or it's just a surname?
No, I'm not related. No, I'm also not related to the poet Yates.
Okay.
This was my first husband's last name, and I liked it much better than my maiden name. So I was like, I'm going to stick with that name.
Okay. I was just thinking because you were in bodybuilding that Dorian Yates somehow, um, either it was your brother or your husband or something like that.
You never know, right?
Yeah. So, can we go to your book? What's your book
Please.
about, and why should our listeners and viewers read it?
Pursue Your Spark is a book for women in midlife. And let me preface this that midlife to me doesn't just mean, oh, I'm 50, I'm in midlife, and that's it. To me, midlife is now that women are so much stronger and more self aware of their body and self trusting themselves. Up until 80, when 80 hits, we deal with a whole bunch of different health issues as we're aging. But until then, women are more outgoing, they're out pursuing their sparking, getting new careers. They're getting a divorce from marriages that they've been stuck in forever. They pursue a passion that they've long forgotten, that they set a new path for themselves going forward in their second or even third half of life. And I see it over and over. And Pursue Your Spark was actually I had thought about writing a book for a while, and I didn't want it to be a fitness book. I was like, there's so many fitness books. And then I thought about what do most of the people that I work with in my studio here in Maryland need from me? Yes, they come for exercise, but they usually come for the conversation, the coaching, the life advice. The I'm not a life coach, but Heike always has an opinion and the feeling better emotionally after they left. One of my clients who is now 80, she just turned 80 last year. She had been a client of mine for years. She has severe scoliosis at the S curvature in the spine, and she started taking Pilates because she felt better because of all the things we talked about in Pilates, the strengthening and lengthening of the spine. And her husband had taken ill, and was really strapped down at home, taking care of him. She couldn't go to her singing group because she had to take him to the doctor. And there was all these things, and she really felt tethered down at home. And her daughter lives not too far away, but she had to fly to her daughter. And she says, you know what? I have another family member taking care of my husband. I'm going to visit my daughter. I'm like, this is great. This is good for you. Do it. And she leaves, comes back for her next session. She comes in the door beaming. And I was like, whoa, what a weekend did you have? And she says, Heike, you're not going to believe this. And she tells me about all the things she did with her daughter. And the most important thing she says, Heike, I feel like myself again. And I looked at her and I said, what does it mean? She said, I didn't feel like I was being pulled in different directions. I was doing what I wanted to do when I wanted to do it. And I didn't have to ask for permission. I didn't have to be cautious of. I didn't have to feel guilty because I didn't take care of my husband. I felt so free. And to me, when somebody said, I feel like myself again, always in my head went back to when I was 20 or 30. When she said it, it really hit home. It was not about feeling younger, but it was about feeling true to yourself, what it is you want, where do you want to go in your next phase of life, and how can you do that? And I looked at her and I said, you just gave me my book. That's what Pursue Your Spark is about. It is a way to give you momentum into what's next for you with my own experience, with that of my clients, with stories, with strategies, with a lot of questions about curiosity and setting boundaries where we often feel guilty for setting boundaries, being curious, because we're tethered in between what is now coined as the sandwich generation. We're in between the grandkids and we're in between our own parents that need us. And there's very little room for us. And so the book is really about you helping you move forward without guilt, without shame, but pursuing that spark. And that spark is not specifically a fitness or a nutrition spark. The book is supported by worksheets and by some of the chapters that are in there that go around fitness and nutrition. But it's primarily about what is your next spark? How do you get going with the spark framework? So to make that happen, what you have been dreaming of.
Amazing. Thank you very much. Thank you, Heike, for all the insights. I will include the link to the book in the description below. And thank you again for being my guest.
Peter, it's a pleasure across the ocean. I love it.